Welcome to the Supergood podcast.
Good morning.
Good morning, guys.
Today we have on the homie Matias.
Hey.
How do you spell your last? I mean, how do you pronounce your last name?
You want the white version? You want the Chilean version?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Both.
Can I have both?
Letelier would be
Letelier.
the easy way that I'll tell people. And then my dad calls it Letelier.
Letelier, nice.
Sexual.
Yeah, exactly.
Dope. All right, so we've switched it up a little bit. Zeke and I are now sitting next to each other for a change.
What's up?
How are you?
Good.
And now Matias is over here. Are you comfortable?
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's jump into it. So, Matias and I first met on a big-ass Jordan Nike shoot a while back. He was running around like a crazy assistant director would. And I'm trying to remember, I think we had a couple conversations on the fly there. I remember you telling me that you were, you produced and you also assistant directed and you did a bunch of Victoria's Secret stuff. And I was like, this kid sounds cool. Like, I want to hear more about that. But yeah, so maybe just start by just like telling us a little bit about what you do, and then we can maybe get into how you got into it.
All right. Well, I produce photo shoots and commercials, mainly print stuff at this point. It's kind of become my bread and butter. I started as a PA, worked my way up, spent a lot of time kind of in the trenches in the commercial world, getting paid very, very little and working very, very hard, getting zero appreciation for it. So I kind of used that to just drive myself and push myself to get out of that position.
Yeah.
I started second ADing and then did a little stint of first ADing. I still kind of do it here and there, and then jumped over to producing.
I know you told me before, but when you were PAing, did you have original interest in going the production route, or were you not quite sure?
I wasn't quite sure. In the beginning, I knew I wanted to work in entertainment and kind of be on the production side of content, in the creation of it. I didn't know.
So it was more so just the path and the relationships.
Yeah.
And
it was like, okay, I jumped in, started PAing for a bit, and I kind of looked at everybody on set, and I was like, okay, who seems like they're having the most fun and is living the best and being respected and kind of is in control, and and I saw like the AD team, and that instantly attracted me, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to go this route a bit.
Yeah.
And then you keep just trying to look for places to grow, new things to do, and take on more responsibility. It makes me feel uncomfortable when I'm on like a set and I don't have responsibility and I don't know what to do. I get kind of like,
Yeah.
So that feeling, I think, just kept pushing me to take on more. And I like that pressure. I like to keep going. And
There's something, I mean, being on set is kind of like a drug.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Like
100%.
if you really lean into it and embrace it, it's a cool feeling. Like it's a complete grind. Like you're on, you know what I mean? I don't know. I like it too. Like I get that bug as well.
Well, we've both been on set together we've been working together for what? Almost a year and a half now, a year and some change.
Yeah.
And you've seen me in my element. Like, you know how I do it. I run around crazy. Like, everybody, let's go. And that's my favorite. That's my power. That's my power. That's my happy place.
I've told you in the past, Matias, like once in a while reminds me of Alec.
Yeah.
Just the energy. It's one of my best friends throughout from college. Same thing. He's just like, like let's go.
So what for people who don't, I guess on set, what exactly is the responsibility of a AD, which is a assistant director?
Yeah. So
I know there's not one thing, but kind of.
So an AD and the term AD kind of changes in different places. Like in the film or in the photo world, which is mainly kind of where I revolve now. As a producer world, the AD is kind of like an art director, right? But in video and film, the AD is the assistant director. You don't have an assistant director generally in photo.
Got it.
But
So different people, just same acronym.
Same name. But an AD in the film world essentially is a glorified PA. right? Like your job is you're like the glue of the entire crew, right? So you're listening to the director and the producer, and you're relaying messages to the entire crew. And then you're taking the information from the crew and you're relaying it to the directors and producers, and you're keeping everything together. So you're the the center of all the spokes.
Right.
But you're also the voice. So
Exactly.
they run the set,
Got it.
which is different from, I think, what many people assume the director's role is.
Yeah. So most people, right, you'd watch, like, if you see a video of old Hollywood, or if you were to walk onto a set, they would probably think that the AD is the director. Because in reality, a director doesn't speak much. He
Right.
sits in a chair behind a monitor and watches his stuff, and he speaks to somebody else. The guy who's rolling, who's saying, and action, that's the AD. That's generally not. Sometimes it's the director, and they'll take that sometimes. But most of the time, that's the AD. He's the guy saying, okay, you guys go there. Da, da, da. So
Go ahead.
So the dynamic probably shifts depending on the relationship between the AD and the actual director.
yes.
So I'm sure you've worked with some directors that are more maybe hands-on with some of the stuff you're doing, and then some that are just let you do whatever the fuck you need to do.
Totally. Like there's a lot of directors that love to be the one speaking to the crew, love to like move people and have direct say in everything. And then there's a lot of guys that just like to sit back and just focus on the creative. They're just worried about what's happening on the screen.
Yeah.
Right?
How does that affect your job?
Well, I think it's personalities more than anything. Like if you want to be loud and do your stuff, by all means, you do it. Like we're all a team. We're all here to make it happen together. It doesn't affect it in any way as long as we're communicating clearly and he knows like what the communication channels are supposed to be. A lot of the times, or people who aren't super seasoned will step in and they think, oh, okay, like this is what I want, but they don't understand that there's a process that has been created over time in this world, that are in the film industry and the way things are produced and created. And as you start to get to know that, it makes the process easier. And if you kind of step away from those channels or the process, it makes it more difficult, right? So unseasoned directors will oftentimes step in and be like, hey, let's do da-da-da, and be like, okay, wait. If we want that, just ask that person. Don't just spew it out to the whole world, because that doesn't help anybody, right? Just follow the process, the channels. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, similar to any job, I guess, if you have a boss that you really like and they're kind of a little bit more in your shit or whatever, it's fine. But if he doesn't really know what he's doing, then it makes your job a little bit difficult. But you still got to figure out how to do it.
Exactly.
And yeah, so cool. No, I'm just trying to, for our listeners or for anybody who maybe want to get into this realm, I really try to break down what you're doing, because I don't want just a high level of what this job means. I want them to have a good idea of what they're getting themselves into. So the most that we can get out of you, that's what I'm going for.
Pause us along the way.
Yeah.
For example, when you say, you're working in both film shoots, but also photography and mostly print, you want to just explain like what print means versus...
Sick. I wrote that down too.
Did you?
Mainly print, question mark.
So print is media without motion, right? It's essentially the stuff that you'll see on billboards and magazines, online and the internet, for when you go and click on any big, company, the stuff that you see that pops up right on the front of the website.
So it's just another word for stills.
For stills, exactly.
Photography versus motion. Even if it's online, still print.
Correct.
Copy that. I don't know. Should we could dive deeper into the beginning, or is there anything specific that else has been said that you want to just jump into in terms of production?
I have a few questions, but I think they'll probably pop up if we just kind of start from the beginning.
Yeah. So, you talked a little bit about PAing first. Mm-hmm. Why don't you tell us about what it was like, maybe meeting Chris, and because that was your kind of first really good contact, right? You started working for.
Yeah.
And maybe talk about just in general the importance of relationships in production.
Done. So I think a big reason why I found the success that I found at this point is because of relationships, and have because I've been very lucky to have some awesome people to help me out along the way. So my first big PA job that really like kicked it off for me was I did this AAA commercial right when I got out of college. It must have been like 4 months out of college. And
Where did you go to college?
I went to San Diego State.
San Diego State.
Yeah.
Did
Graduated.
you study production?
No, I didn't. I was a communication major with an emphasis in television, film, and new media studies. So it was funny because when I graduated school, I was like, what the fuck? Hey, what did I just go to school for?
Yeah.
What is this? It's so broad. Where do I go with it?
Yeah.
And now looking back, it's like, oh, I did the perfect thing. It's like perfect for what I do.
Right.
It's funny how that shifted.
Same. I mean, I ended up at a business school. We both did, but actually Northwood, they were trying to recruit me out of high school. And I was like, I don't know anything about business. Like, I'm good. And then I ended up later on in life, that was one of the only places I had an opportunity to get a scholarship. And so I went there and I got there. I was like, what the fuck do I want? I don't care about business. Mm-hmm. And looking back now, I thank God that I learned about business because it's literally in everything, in sales and anything you do. If you want to try, like, you have to have some basic, general
understanding.
Yeah. So
that's how I feel about like a communication degree. It's like such a broad stroke.
Right. At the time, it's like, I don't know where to apply this, but it applies to everything.
Everything.
Communication, business, either way.
And like in what I do now, it's all I do, right? It's just dealing with people and dealing with personalities and trying to get things done. So yeah, it just perfectly works. But
okay.
To go back, sorry. I had a friend from high school who kind of heard that or from college, who went to my college. He was a younger kid that I kind of brought under my wing for a bit. And when he came in, and he knew that like when I was graduating, I wanted to jump into the production world. So he had a mom who was a casting agent, a lovely lady named Kathy Carlton, who he put me in touch with, and she hooked me up with this gentleman named Ricky Matias. Ricky now runs a company called Have a Soul, a nonprofit. Everybody check it out there. Awesome nonprofit that gives shoes to the new and gently worn shoes to the homeless and those in need. Anyways, Ricky, I called him and he was like, okay, I got this job for you. Let's get you going. Come on Wednesday. So I went to my first big set on this Wednesday, and I was looking at the call sheet. I was super scared, had no idea what to do. And I didn't see Ricky's name on it. And I was like, okay, that's strange, but all right, like whatever. Parked up, and this guy comes walking out, and it's Ricky. And he's like, what's up? Nice to meet you. It's like, hey, so why aren't you on the call sheet? And he goes, well, I gave you my spot today. So I'm just here to help you out. Sick. The producers know that I'm just going to be here floating and and I'll just point you in the right direction. And just that little gesture of not just giving me a job, but sitting there with me on my first day of ever doing something and showing me the right way to do it, that changed my life. Like that set me on a trajectory of success. I feel like it was the most important thing. And from that moment, like I was walking around set, and he was like, you see those guys? Don't do that. Don't do what they're doing. You see those guys? Be like them. Like, work hard, like just hang around those guys. The producers were like, these are the people you need to speak to if you want to keep getting hired. And he just like right off the bat showed me what I needed to do.
Wow.
And and it just kind of like everything opened up for, like all in one day. Like the clouds kind of parted, the sun came down. I was like, oh, I get it. And that kind of started it off. So he got me going. He's like, talk to these producers, and the ball started rolling. I was working at this, right when I graduated school, I was working at a restaurant that I hated. It's like, why am I just went to school. I'm working at this restaurant. What the hell? I need to be doing what I need to do. I want to get into PAing. And so that it started happening to a point where like, okay, finally I can quit my restaurant job. So I finally quit my restaurant job after 6 months, and that was a very scary moment. And shortly after that, of just kind of being in the trenches, just PAing, I was doing art department, I was doing anything I could get, cheap job, like really crappy pay, $120 or something like that. I came across this. I was working this Nickelodeon commercial, I believe, and there was this gentleman running around who was the first AD, and his name was Chris Northup. Chris Northup is an amazing, fun, wacky human being. Sterling, we've worked together with him. The first when I actually met Sterling, he was the AD and my boss on that job. But yeah, so I was working art department. I saw this guy running around, running the set, being amazing, like just having fun with everybody, just power, right? It was just a man of power walking around this room. And I had nothing to do with him because I was working art department. I didn't even get much face time. After the job ended, I was like, man, I need to get in with him. So I wrote him an email. I think it was May 26th, 2014 or 2015. I can't remember which one. And I still have the email. And I sent it to him, and I pretty much just said, hey, my name is Matias. I was working art department. I'm new to this. I want to learn. You are awesome and incredible, and I'd love to pick your brain, and if you ever need an extra hand, I'd love to help out. That's essentially what the email said, and he hit me back immediately. He was like, dude, so cool that you hit me up like that. Like, come on Wednesday. Always a Wednesday. So like my biggest things have always been on like, here, come on this Wednesday. I was like, done, let's do it. And that was my first kind of, or my second, I guess, other than Ricky, like game-changing event in my career. I started working as his ADPA for about a year, almost a year, and then I graduated to being a second AD. For those that don't know, a second AD essentially runs the talent. So you're in charge of whenever a talent comes to set, you do their paperwork, get them through hair and makeup. You're in communication with the first AD, you know the schedule, and you're getting people in the right looks, bringing them to set and making sure everybody's ready when they get to camera. So yeah, that was
dope. So I got two things from that.
Yeah.
One, so when you quit your restaurant job, can you just maybe dive into that kind of moment in that period in your life where you were like, all right, I know this is the route I want to go. I can't keep doing this if I have to I can't do both. So can you just kind of explain like where you were at in your head and like what was that moment where you're like, all right, I got to quit this. Like I'm ready. Like, fuck it. Yes,
totally. So graduated school. I worked as a maitre d' at the Misfit down in Santa Monica. It was a great job. Like I got paid a lot of pretty good money. I was making like...
I should probably know this, but I have no idea what a maitre d' is.
So a maitre d' is essentially a glorified host.
Got it.
But you wear like a suit and you kind of are more of like a face that kind of welcomes it, other than just being like, okay, go over there.
Do you have to get booked for that? Or is that like a...
It was a job. So I was the one... I was 23, 22 at the time. Everybody else was 35, right? So I was like the youngest by far. It was like an older man's distinguished job. Like everybody looked very nice, and and I was just kind of this young kid walking in there wearing a suit, looking kind of sharp. So they gave me the job, right? But it was a great job, and I was making good money. But I didn't want to work at a restaurant. I just went to school to work in entertainment, and I knew I wanted to do that. And so, yeah, I was in there. And I started slowly getting these PA jobs. They were trickling in here and there, and I would do whatever I could to be like, God, I need this day. I'm sick. And, like whatever excuses I could to get that set job and like step away from the restaurant, any chance I could get. And it was kind of a mixture of, okay, the work is coming in and me kind of just being fed up with this restaurant job. Essentially, I had gone on this like vacation, and I told them for months that I was going on this thing, and I was going to be back on this Monday. And essentially, on the day before, like the last 2 days before I went back, they started giving me all this crap about like, hey, you need to be here. It's your job to be here. And I was like, guys, I told you months ago that I'm not going to be here this day. Don't give me crap for it. Don't give me shit for it. So yeah, like I'm flying home that day and they're like, okay, you need to be in. It was like the Sunday night, and I was flying back and they're like, you need to be in tonight. It's like, guys, I'm not coming in. I told you I'm not coming in. It's not happening. And they were like, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. And I remember them saying like, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. I was like, you know what? This. So I went home that night. I kind of like looked around, thought about it. And the PA work was enough there. I was getting like 2, 3, 4 jobs like every 2 weeks. It wasn't much, but I figured like, okay, like if I really put my mind to it, I can do it. This is another time so that morning, that Monday morning, I didn't go to work that Sunday night. I was like, okay, I'm in trouble, right?
Yep.
Fuck that. I went, sat down at a Starbucks. I was like, okay, what do I want? Do I want to, like, I know where this path leads of being in this restaurant, right? I could make the money here, be a manager, whatever. Like, I could go down that route. Or I can take a step back. I can take a pay cut, jump into something a little more unknown, and the possibilities and the potential is almost limitless. And I wrote myself a letter that morning to myself before I walked into the restaurant. And I haven't found it. I can't find it. It was on like my old computer. But I wrote myself a letter pretty much saying like, even though you're scared about this stuff, I just kind of was like spewing my own ideas on the page. But even though you're scared and even though it might seem weird and you don't know, like you just got to do things like that and you just got to go for it. And I just like talked it out with myself, like on this piece of paper. And I walked into my job that morning, and my manager was like, "Hey, we really need to talk about last night about you not showing up." And I was like, "No, we don't, because I quit, and I can either stay today and do the job for you, or I could just walk out right now. So what do you want?" And she was like, "What? Why are you quitting?" Yeah, I'm quitting. See you later.
She was in trouble.
Yeah. So, I took that jump back, and I think it's important for people to always do. It's like you got to really know what your goals are. And even though I wasn't going to be making as much money just going into the PA world and just doing that, I knew that step back was going to allow me to take many steps forward other than, just staying right where I was in the comfort. A lot of people think, I remember this one like Uber driver, after I like told her that I was like right in that period where I told her, "Oh, I just quit my job. I'm going for this other thing." She's like, "Oh, you're getting a pay raise, right?" I was like, "Oh no, I'm like actually taking a pay cut." She's like, "Oh, you never do that. You never do that. You always go for what you get paid more in." And I remember thinking like, and that's why you're going to drive Uber forever.
Right.
It's like that kind of ideology. And I think that's wrong. I think that's deeply wrong.
Mm-hmm. Right. No, I think it's important. And I love to talk about kind of that moment that people make, because everybody has it. And it's important to understand that, it doesn't just happen. Like everything has to play out. You were doing a couple jobs, a couple gigs, and then, your job like was kind of on your ass, and you're like, fuck you guys. And like everything got to that point to where you sat down and wrote yourself a letter and to like talk yourself through any insecurities you may have about it or any worries and probably pros and cons. So I think that's important for people, because people have, goals, or there's something they want to do, but they don't know. They're like, I can never do that. Well, just start taking the steps towards doing that.
Yeah.
Start like, game planning, or,
and an easy way to take this step is, and it's something that I do all the time whenever I have like, I'm at a crossroads, is I write to myself. I'll sit down and I'll just like spill my ideas out in front of me and see them. And I know it's like sounds weird, but for me, it's awesome to like see myself talking to myself, and I can like, it's like having a conversation with yourself, and you can like work through this stuff.
Yeah, I've never been much of a writer.
I'm not generally either, but when I have these moments of like, it's a good way for me to work through them, and it's like almost like writing the pros and cons down, and you get to see it other than just sitting down and thinking about it, right? Because you get lost in thought, you go different places, but if you're just sitting there in front of a piece of paper, well, I guess it makes it very tangible.
It's like
and real.
Anything, like if you actually write, like, with business ideas or anything, like we can sit here and contemplate and talk about it. But once we write it down and then kind of have a goal,
it's a real thing.
It happens. Yeah.
I think it's important to point that out too, because I think a lot of people maybe kind of want to do something else and then are in something that they don't like to do. And then there'll be some, moment of ignorance or whatever. I just think it's important to point out that like you had a moment of clarity and you had goals, and there was a reason, there was a real reason why you chose to do that. Because believe me, I'm an advocate for changing your life and pulling the plug and switching things up. But I think it does require that next level of like reasoning behind it versus I got drunk at the bar last night and I came in, I'm like, I'll do it today.
Yeah, no,
you know what I mean? Like it's like
setting goals and like executing your goals.
Definitely be willing to take that step.
But and being smart and seeing opportunity. I think like a big important thing, and at least what I've done and the steps that I've taken is just like seeing moments of opportunity and seeing a void in something else, and like okay, I'm gonna go for that, and that's gonna be my goal in the next 6 months, and to like just fill that void.
Right.
And you have to attack and have clear goals.
Well, so, I've said this before, but one of the reasons we even started this podcast is like, so I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan, and he always says this, and he's like, if you're doing something that you're not happy doing, stop doing it.
Yeah.
Like you don't want this job or factory, whatever the job is, we all have to work. But he doesn't say how. He says you don't like it, then change what you're doing. And I agree with him, but it's not that simple.
No.
And so a lot of the point of this podcast is to talk to our peers and other people and say, all right, well, how did you make that first step? Because anyone can tell you you don't like doing that. Well, then go do something else. Well, how the fuck do I do something else? How do I take that step? What are the things that I'm going to go through in my mind? What are those, it's important to understand you're going to go through a lot of shit. Even maybe that first step is hard. But that's what, it really interests me. Everyone's has a very interesting story about kind of that moment after college or when they quit one job and started a new thing. That's what I think is important for people to hear. But
yeah, just the willingness to jump into the unknown is been something that's been that I'm grateful for, and it's been super powerful in me, and like just being willing to jump, right? Because if the second you jump, you're in a new realm, and you're gonna, if you have confidence in your own abilities, you're gonna figure something out, right? But if you never take that jump, you can sit there and think about it forever. You just got to do it. It's going to open new doors, and you'll figure it out then,
Love that.
Once you quit the job and you're just at the beginning of that, we'll call it a fall, did you have any like, oh shit moments, or were you?
Oh yeah, there was definitely a couple moments where there was $20, $30 in my bank account.
You're like, does this parachute work?
It's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
But you work through it. Yeah, you push hard, and you keep grinding, and it works out if you work hard, right? If you work hard, and as a PA, always try to do the job of the person whose job you want, right? So wherever you are in anything you do, look at who has the job you want and just start doing and learning the things that they do, right? Mm-hmm. And do them. Like don't ask to do them, do them.
Right.
And ask for forgiveness before asking for acceptance or, the right to do something. Just start doing this stuff. You don't want to go around stepping on people's toes, right, in this world, but sometimes you got to, right? You got to go and ruffle up some feathers. And I definitely did that a bit, I would start doing the second AD's job. I saw that he wasn't taking the talent right away and getting him over and doing what he needed to do. I'd be like, fine, I'm going to do it. I'd take him, and there was definitely some guys who were like, what are you doing? That's my job. Like, well,
then do it.
Do your job. And if you're not going to do it, I'll do it, and I'll take some stuff right here. I'll learn something right here,
Yeah.
And people see that.
No, I think that's big. I think that's universal to any job that you're in is do more. What's Mitch's? What's Mitch's?
Do more.
Do more.
Do more.
Yeah.
Be more.
Because ultimately you're going to learn on the way, and people are going to see that you are doing, not necessarily your responsibility. People who just want to do their responsibility and go home, it's not going to move you forward. I mean, it might, but it's going to be a slower process.
Yeah. Compared
to if you take action and try to do a little bit more and ask where you see people need help, ask to help and just do it. Commit, because it's going to put you on that right trajectory. So I definitely agree with that.
And ask for help.
And ask for help.
Ask for help. That's a big
thing
that I think.
Don't let your pride get in the way.
Yeah, don't let pride get in the way. It's okay to not know the answers to things.
You can't have too much pride too when you're new in something, man.
No.
Get over it.
Yeah, and even when you're not new, like You know, as a producer, as a producer, right? Like now I'll get thrown things like, hey, do this big, projection thing, or I don't know how that works.
Right.
I have no idea the actual technology behind that stuff. And I have no problem saying, hey guys, how does this work? Hey, whatever the technician is, teach me this real quick, because I have no idea. So let me learn. And don't have an ego. You don't need to know everything. It's okay to ask for help, and as long as you're real about it, and you're learning. You're not asking for help for the same thing 100 times. Ask for it once, figure it out.
Yeah.
Ask for help for something else.
Right. Yeah. It's like, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say on that note, like when there's a project that's coming in with challenges, obviously you've built your knowledge through experience and learning, and as you're saying, asking. But can we kind of deconstruct that process a little bit on, you're teed up to produce a job, comes in, there's unique challenges. What are the first steps? And tell us about building a team. Tell us about generally like what your responsibility is at the forefront of that project.
Yeah, because so we kind of talked about like what an AD is, right? I think like you were asking before, like what is a producer, right? Because that word gets thrown around so much and it changes everywhere. So in my world, as a print and commercial producer, you're in charge of essentially your like daddy, right? You got the money, you take care of everybody, you make sure that everything's good, everything's where it needs to be, and everybody's happy. Basically, right? So somebody comes to me with a job, comes to me with a creative pitch, and they say, this is what we want. Whatever the client is, this is the concept behind it. And I'll take whatever wherever they're showing me and deconstruct it. Right? They have a picture of 3 people on a beach. That's the frame, the pictures from up high. It's there's a car in the background. You've just from that picture you can take like 3 talent, drone shot, or a crane. We need a picture car. We need permits for the beach. Like you start to deconstruct the money that's behind everything that you see, and that varies, on project, and the difficulty of that varies. But yeah, so that's the beginning stage, right? So you look at that, you deconstruct it, and you start to build a budget. You start to realize, okay, like what is the actual money that this idea that I'm looking at, what is it going to cost? Build a budget, you bid it out generally, or the client gives it to you, and there's just like, okay, you're doing it. So from there, you have to hire crew. You hire crew.
And let me just stop you real quick. So do you think it's through experience that you get the idea of how much to pad for these kind of pseudo
that's a hard one.
Common or unknown challenges, I guess.
Yeah, that's a hard one. And that's where it goes back to like research and asking and knowing people who have done things and being willing to like say, hey, I have no idea. Because you don't want to
jump into something and then tell the client it's this, and then all of a sudden it's 5 times that much.
And in our world, right, like everything that we do is all based on connections, right? Yeah. Like I haven't done my resume since I graduated school, and it's because it's all through connections, right? It's all every job I get is word of mouth through somebody else. So that's the most important thing is your connection. So if I don't know something, I'll call somebody up and be like, how much does that cost? What's the deal with that? And do my own due diligence and research, and you start to figure it out and you break it down. It's not rocket science, right? Everything has a price. You can figure it out, right? So yeah, you start to deconstruct things, and it's mainly based off of experience. It takes time. I've definitely made some mistakes along the way. But you learn from them, and, you pad things, you make sure that there's wiggle room in budgets, not too much, but enough. So yeah,
it's interesting. I mean, I told you I called Matias the other day just to start asking some questions about basic understanding of like, what does it require to legally or semi-legally shoot at different locations. And, it's interesting from my perspective in kind of working around in this low budget music video world, comparing that with with what you're doing on a daily basis, but just it's interesting from a producer's point of view, and like when you have these challenges, trying to identify, you know, a cost to that, and seeing anything as possible technically, which is wild because the especially the first creative that comes in on these jobs are usually very, you know, far fetched. Like most things get peeled down.
Yeah. Until they realize what it actually is going to take. It's funny from like a complete outside perspective is when I you know, I'll be like, why don't we just go shoot here? But like, you don't think about, you know, like back in Michigan and Grand Rapids, you know, we can go in the street and shoot. No one's going to stop us from doing anything. Yeah. But here you can't just go out and shoot or you got to pay. So let me ask you real quick, side, like what is a fine if you get fined for, like if you're on the beach and you don't have a permit and you're shooting? Like how does that work? Do they get fined or they just kick you off? Or
they'll kick you off. They'll literally just walk up if you're playing. Like they'll walk up and just stand in front of your camera.
Really?
Yeah. So,
okay. So there's not like a fine.
They could be. You know, you could call, like if you're out in front of a store, for instance, and you're blocking their traffic, and they come out and they're like, "You don't have a permit to be here. You're loitering. You're impeding on my business." They could hit you with something, potentially a loitering ticket, something like that. You know, the cops get involved.
Is there people that roam LA, non-police officers, looking for film shoots?
There's film.
Is that true?
There's Film LA.
So they have their own.
Film LA is the
film
master.
Police?
They're the film police.
Is it a
judges? Everything. They're in charge of the whole thing.
Is this a private organization, or are they?
I don't know.
With the city, or like how does that?
They work with the city and they're in charge of all permitting. They know every shoot that's happening.
I've been in there.
They know every shoot that's happening, and they're in charge of making sure that everybody's going through the appropriate channels.
Yeah.
So if you have a small, let's say you just have you know, you're shooting and you have, you know, one or two people, how typically do people get permits for that, or do they just say fuck it and like go find a spot, shoot quick and dip?
Yeah. So this is like what we were talking about before. You just got to be real with yourself, right? Like, you know, if you have two people and a shooter, you know, and they're just going to be doing something quick and they're just walking down the street, go for it. Go shoot whatever you need, right? But if you want to go and have that person doing a whole dance scene on the middle of a sidewalk, or you want to pull some cars up and you want to, you know, you have a crew of 20 people wandering around,
right? You're
going to be seen, you know, like. So you just got to be real with what you're doing.
Right.
And, you know, be aware of be spatially aware.
Yeah. You do a lot of travel jobs. Talk to me about the difference in working in LA versus other places.
It's so fun. It's such a cool thing that I'm like learning more and more about.
Yeah.
Because it's always different everywhere you go. And there's like different little things that, you know, that you don't know. So LA's the home, the Mecca, right? There's the most rules here. There's things tend to be the most expensive, and we have the best infrastructure for what we want to do. The resources, there's everything. Anything you could ever need to do any film or anything is right here, right?
You've told me about a couple specifically travel jobs, like you're going to like super dope places in the Caribbean, or like I want to hear about some of that excitement and also like how you make that happen.
Yeah. So those ones are hard.
Like, didn't you go to private?
Yeah, I went to
island or something.
I went to the island of Mystique with the Victoria's Secret like a few years back, and that was incredible. This Mystique is a private island in the Grenadines. It's called the Billionaires Island. It's like it's a real island, but it's like fake. It's only 100 villas owned by billionaires, and like it's vacation homes. There's generally nobody on it, and you know it's only the people who work at the houses and the billionaires.
I would love to be a fly on the wall or a fly on the island.
Yeah, it was
shit
fun.
That goes down at that place.
It was fun being there. It was a crazy kind of weird place. I told you the kind of scary story about that place. Right?
I don't remember.
Can you elaborate? Or can you not elaborate?
There's one. So the one restaurant on the island, it's essentially a bunch of rich white people who own these villas, and it's in the island, in the Grenadine chain. So it's black people and islanders and Caribbeans, and they're generally the maids for these rich white people and the butlers. And the one restaurant on this island is called, it's either the Plantation or the Cotton House.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
and I remember
fucked
like
up.
we walked up to the one restaurant and like I looked and I was like, what the fuck, guys? It's like a bunch of white people being served by black people, and it's called the Cotton House or whatever it was, the Plantation.
Oh my gosh.
It's like, whoa. It's like
And that's
a
like
get out
that's
moment,
that's
you
like
know?
recently. That's
Yeah,
like
this was a couple years, like 4 years ago. But
That's crazy.
to loop it back, like it's always different. It's always a learning experience. And you know, I think a big thing is having a really good team of people who are having foresight and thinking about the problems before they're problems, right? So like you go to an island like that and it's like, where are you going to get crafty for one? You know, like where does that
Craft
happen? You know,
services
like craft services. That's like such a
Like the snacks.
The food and
snacks.
all that
Yeah,
shit.
and that's
Yeah.
like the smallest problem. You know, it's
Yeah.
like, so you ship it all out there. You know, where do you get your camera equipment? Ship it all out there. Where do you get like transportation? You find a local. So the big thing that I do in any city that I go to is I find a local and they become my coordinator or production manager at that, you know, in that place. And they're my person on the ground that knows the city. And I just rely on them and lean on them for anything that's specific to the city. You know, every city has a different permitting rules, different, you know, like rules about how you can work with children or
How do you go about finding that local person?
word of mouth connections. So, you know, I'll ask around with the people that I know and trust. And if hopefully I'll get a lead there. And if I don't, you can always turn, for those producers out there that don't know, you can always turn to any city's film commission. You can go online, go to their film commission, you know, you could say Santa Barbara Film Commission or whatever, you know, wherever it is. And there'll be a website that has some resources. Generally, it's not, you know, if it's a city out in the boonies, not going to be great, but
Get somebody on the phone.
Point
you
in
could
the
get
right direction.
somebody on the phone who can help you out generally.
Is that how you found the PM when we were in New York?
No, but I found when we're doing that thing in Minnesota, that's how I found that one. Because Minnesota is I have people in New York, but Minnesota is such a random place to go and kind of shoot for me. So that's how I found her, and she's amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's really interesting.
it
I mean,
works
from a shooting point of view too, every time we go somewhere, we've lucked out actually from, you know, like a lot of our connects have come from Chad, one of the other, you know, Chad from Los York, one of the other producers who used to be in reality for years and years. But like, it's interesting when you're trying to build a team and like from a shooting point of view, we need, you know, we might need shooters, we might need, oftentimes we need gaffers who run the lighting department, and it's like, yeah. But the best experiences have been find a local, establish a rapport to the point where you trust them and that they're, you know, going to quote the amount of gear you need correctly, and then allow them to help build the team from there.
yeah, and you can tell once you've had a little bit. It doesn't take much experience to tell who's, you know, full of it or who like doesn't know what they're talking about. You can spend a couple seconds on the phone and be like, "Oh, how does that work?" You don't know. Like, you know, where are you going to get that? You don't know. So, yeah, you trust people and you build off people and you trust relationships and yeah.
So going back to kind of the on-set experience, we talked about the role of an AD and the role of a producer, and let's just talk about, I think both of those roles kind of are like firefighters, if you will.
Yeah.
So it's just complete ongoing problem solving.
And the way I sorry to interrupt, but the way I generally think of it is, so a producer does all the firefighting or problem solving before and after, generally, right? They create everything and they get everybody to the table. And then the AD, once everybody's around the table, they do the firefighting there, right? And the producer helps with it, of course, but at that point he gets to take a step back and make sure that there's no place where money is hemorrhaging or things are hemorrhaging out of control, right? They're holding the container, and then the AD is stirring the container or moving the pieces inside.
The ground floor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So furthermore, like I've been on sets with, I've been lucky. I've been on more sets with great ADs than not, but I've been on horror story sets. I think as we all have. Yeah. Chris is great. Like there's this kind of way to present yourself where you definitely like, I'm in charge type of thing, but still have this level of, I don't know how to explain it. It's like you can tell that person is humble, I guess. Where like if I walked up to that person as a PA and had a question, like as long as I'm not interrupting the scene or something, like he's not going to be a dick. Like he's about the communication, he's about the team, and I think that's something that if he's taught you, I think you're really good at too. And just keeping your cool.
Yeah,
it's this level of cool breeze that you want to just like throw around on people, and Matias is very good at it. Like it's I want you to talk about that a little bit.
It's the most important thing, right? And if
in
as
a job
a leader,
with extreme stress, as
a leader, there's only one way to lead, in my opinion, and that's from the front, right? You can't ask anybody to do something you're not willing to do. You have to lead by example. There's only one way. And to remember that the reason that we do all this, the reason that we are sitting here having this conversation, or the reason why we do any of the business that we do ideally, is because we want to do that, right? We wanted to do that. We decided that this would be a great place. This would be a great way to live my life. I want to enjoy it. So enjoy it, make sure you're having fun. And spread that fun, get a job done, make sure you're doing the job. And sometimes it's not always fun, but remember that this is supposed to be enjoyable. I'm supposed to be enjoying what I do, and it's going to be feeding my life, right? So I am always trying to take that and remember that, especially in extreme situations where there's all this pressure. It's just to enjoy yourself and to remind people that we're here to work, of course, but it doesn't have to be a bad time. This can be a good time. And yeah, I was lucky enough to have a Chris Northup, who is a big jokester and also just so highly capable of juggling a billion things at one time, but also looking the other direction and laughing to somebody about something, like he's able to do that. And I think that's like, it's charisma, and it's a powerful thing, and it makes people want to work, it makes people want to do.
Yeah. We've had some, I can't even think of a specific example. And I think we're lucky that we haven't had any huge issues on the sets we've been working on. But like even in New York, I mean, just shit happens, like rain, whatever it may be. But we've had a couple like great van rides back from set where everyone's just kind of cracking up, you know what I mean? And like Matias has built a really, really dope team around him. And I mean, even the other AD guys are awesome.
Yeah, Mitch and Johnny.
It changes the game in terms of like dealing with hard challenges.
And you want to have, I always try to have people around me that I enjoy being around and that are fun. And it makes the environment and the whole situation better. I think that whole film is like has this reputation, especially the film world in particular, has this reputation of being kind of like mean, right? Like, oh, you're a PA and you suck, and like like everybody's people yelling, ADs yelling at you, directors yelling at you, producers yelling at you. That's something that like firmly believe has no place, right? I think it should disappear. And it is kind of, if you look at the industry now, and there's,
I was gonna say, especially in light of all this shit going on.
Yeah.
So it's like, trying to get rid of just that whole
a nasty cloud.
Cloud mindset behind it. Yeah. It doesn't have to be that way. Same in any
How
job.
do you deal with encountering poisonous people?
Try to kill them with kindness and or just not even engage and just do what I know I need to do. That's generally what I do. Instead of if I have to, I kill them with kindness, but then I just say, okay, you want to be like, that's fine. I'm going to do my job, and I'm not going to instigate you. I'm not going to push your buttons. I don't mess with me.
Right.
Don't mess with me at all. You don't want to mess with me. But I'm not going to fuck with you either. So
right.
You do your job. That's fine. I'll do my job. Fine. Let's just get this thing done.
Yeah.
Jocko Willink, he's an ex Navy SEAL guy, and he has a podcast. But one thing that he said that really struck a chord with me was that he has the same relationship with any boss he's ever had. doesn't matter the boss. If the boss is a dick or the boss was a great guy,
Yeah.
he still has the same relationship because he's doing what he needs to do, and he will be who he needs to be for that person. So if the guy's a dick, kill him with kindness, do your thing. If the guy's great, he works with him and he can get more done. But it's for him, he doesn't care who the person is because it's his mindset that he goes in with that person, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that's important.
And I think that's, like, especially when you're dealing with, we'll be interacting with 100 people, 150 people at any one time. You can't cater to everyone. You just got to be firm in what you are and let that, like, lead you and direct you, right? Yeah.
So Sterling, before we get close to asking them some questions, I have a couple points from some things you hit.
Yeah.
One, Chris, you said you reached out to him via email after you had an opportunity. How fast did you do that?
I did that the same day.
Same day.
I got home at 8 o'clock at night. I think I wrote it like at 10 o'clock at night, and I just sent him the email.
Right.
I just tried to do it because I didn't have much interaction with him during the day. I had like one moment of actual interaction with him. It was just all me kind of like observing this person who was great at their job. So I knew if like I didn't do it right then it would just like go out of his memory, you know?
Yeah, and point I'm trying to make is take initiative.
Yeah.
It's no different in your work life. When I get an email, obviously they're not always, but I try to get back to the people right away because it just shows them like, okay, this dude's about it. Even if they don't get back to you, it shows them that like, he's taking into consideration my time, my everything, and you get right back to the people. Same with emails, and now I'm not, I don't do it every time, but I try to.
Yeah.
That's the concept behind it.
And kind of what we were talking about this, like you were like, Matias is going to be on time, right?
Right, and you were.
Yeah.
Early.
If you're 15 minutes early, you're on time. If you're on time,
You're late.
You're late. If you're late, you're fired, right? That's that's the way it works.
And then the second thing, I'm just working this one through my head, but you were saying just the reason that we're all in this is because, we enjoy it. Well, there's some people who don't necessarily enjoy their jobs. Yes. And there's some people who have to work and they have to get any job they can get. But what I was thinking when you said that was, it doesn't really matter the job. Like if you don't necessarily enjoy it, it goes back to do more in that job. And I think that you will start to find a satisfaction or a gratification because the more you're doing in a job you don't necessarily love, if you try to take that extra step and do that next guy's job, you will get in return, you'll get in return, your boss or whoever, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but they'll see that you're putting that extra work in. You might get a raise and you might get to that next level and you might get faster. So even if you're in a position you don't love, just do more. And you'll find in that job that, you might get further ahead and you might actually start to like something that you're not necessarily passionate about.
Exactly.
So it's just a kind of a point. And then last thing I have is, listen, you can't skip over the Victoria's Secret model and not talk about the models. Like, just give me give me something, man. You're on an island. You're on a billionaire island with Victoria's Secret models. Please,
oh, man.
Please. I need. What was it for? What were you shooting? What were they wearing?
They were not wearing much. I've done a bunch of VS jobs at this point. I've done a bunch of pink shoots. They're all really nice people. They're just people. We're all just people, right?
Right.
So. They're all really friendly. They're all, I try to, it's one of those things I try to not like, about too much because there is such like an aura to it.
Right.
But it's a blessing. It's been a blessing to work with him for as long as I have. I've been doing jobs with him for a while now, a couple years, through a company called BAM Productions. They're one of the other production houses that I work with a lot. And Pink and Victoria's Secret is one of their main clients. But yeah, we're on private beaches, having lots of fun.
How many
taking some pictures, and then
how many girls are at these shoots? Like, is it all of them?
No, generally they'll pick like I think at that one there was 10 of the girls there. They have their main like rotation, and then they kind of pop people in and out.
All right. Well, for our listeners, just use your imagination. Island, billionaires, girls. I don't know. That restaurant kind of fucked me up a little bit, but
it's like Get Out, dude.
It's not. It's America, and you listen to the richest people in this country come from old money, and our country comes from a kind of fucked up foundation. But we are where we are.
What is the founding government? What's the governing body of that?
Like St. Lucia, whatever. Like
those guys that live on the island.
America?
No, it's like it's the Grenadines. I don't like even know. It's like
some
above
random
Venezuela.
country? I
It's
have
like
no
this
idea.
chain of
Okay.
islands above Venezuela.
Venezuela, got it.
Yeah, there's like
I'm pretty sure those guys that live on the island are the governing body. And
Yeah, they're
also
right.
the governing body for the world.
They are.
So kind of a sidestep. Going back to when I was asking you about the ability to keep your calm and just the mentality, the positive mentality. You know, you're a very hard worker. You grind hard when you're working. When you're not working, talk about, you know, how do you break it off? But then also, like, I know you're physically active. I always see you post like shit about climbing walls and whatnot. Like, talk about just life offset and like keeping mentally there.
Yeah, it's very important. Like, I'm a firm believer in like work hard and play hard and enjoy your time off. And you know, it's a hard thing to do sometimes as a freelancer because you don't know where the next thing is. But I've started to get. It's taken years. I'm starting to finally get a good like pulse on it. And
Yeah, man, that's what I'm dealing with right now. It's just like
it's so hard. It's so hard to understand the freelance kind of the stuff that goes through your brain is it's a challenging thing. So it's like not really even something you can explain. You have to just do it. But I believe that being physically active is, for me, it's really important. I find it's part of my identity, right? Like it's something I hold very close to home. So like I rock climb, I box, I go and kind of like swing and do like calisthenic stuff. And, you know, I'm always trying to like, there's nothing better than waking up in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning on a day off where, you know, you have some time and just getting out and working out really hard. It sets your day, makes it all. And get your endorphins going.
It really does. It's the best stress reliever, man.
Best stress reliever. And there's nothing that can beat it. So for you guys out there that don't have a physical regimen in your life, I highly encourage you to take one on, whatever it is, because it's just game changing. It allows you to clear your mind in a way that nothing else really can do. And I think this is, sometimes I struggle saying this, but I think if you're not physically active, it says a lot about who you are as a person. And I don't know if that's,
you know, I have some friends or like some boys who have girlfriends or are married or like they just don't care. They're like, I don't need to work out. Like I'm set, I'm good. But it's not even about that. Like
No.
if you like, I know plenty of guys who aren't like super fit who have all the confidence in the world. And I think with a lot of people, working out is kind of a confidence thing. But if we break it down, it's not just confidence. It literally is the best stress reliever. You're giving yourself a second to not think about anything. Just listen to your music or think or listen to a book. I mean, whatever you want. But you're just giving yourself an hour or 2 hours in the day to just clear everything the fuck out. And I literally try to work out every day if I can.
Yeah.
Struggling this past week. But it's more than that. You know what I mean?
It's like,
Don't
for
just
me,
look at it as like a body thing.
No,
Look
it's
at
not
it
a
as like
vanity thing at all. I think
mental thing.
it's more of a challenging yourself thing, right?
Right.
It's like you pushing yourself to do something more and to like have an internal battle. And that's what I love. Like it's an opportunity for me to beat myself at something every day and to get better. It's only a race between myself and nobody else. And that can, you look outside, you see everything out, and it's like a race between you and everybody else. Sometimes it feels like that.
Right.
To take a step back, zone in on your own stuff, and to work on your own stuff it's amazing for me. And I love it. And I have an awesome partner, my girlfriend Alicia, who I've been with for 5 years now. She's definitely a source of joy, and like I don't think I could have done what I've done and accomplished without her. So I rely heavily on her kind of stability in my life, and she grounds me. She like I'm a very kind of like I run around and get a little sidetracked. It brings me down. But yeah, it's important to enjoy your life, be physically fit, and experience stuff, and go outside of your comfort zone. It's not the stuff that I do. It's not the stuff that I do generally that I regret. It's the stuff that I don't do. So do stuff.
That's good.
Go.
Cool. We usually have a few rapid fire questions we pop off at the end here. We're just about out of time. I'm just going to ask you one. kind of on that note, what do you think the most important habit is for a creative or a creator or an entrepreneur? And maybe you just answered that.
So I don't know if this is something that I don't know if we've really covered, but I think it's key to everything that I am and everything that I want to be. Is it's important to not think that you have all the answers and to rely on the people around you and to build up the people around you. I think the most beautiful thing about what I've created and what I've been able to do is I've been able to build a really awesome team around me who, you've met, Sterling, and I rely on them so much, and I rely on them in and outside of work. They are my friends. I build relationships, and I try to build everybody up around me, because by doing that, I make myself stronger and I make everybody around me stronger, right? So I guess the answer to that question is reaching out to people around you, staying connected, and not being, and remembering that you're only as strong as the people really directly around you. Yeah.
That's dope. It's so true. All right. We're just about out of time. Matias, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for
it's been
having
a
me.
blessing. We could talk for much
a lot
longer. Well, I'm sure you'll end up
the
being
first edition.
a friend
First
of
edition.
the
We'll
show.
check up with you in a couple months, see where you're at,
Sounds
see
good.
what you're up
Let's do
to.
it.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
I
guys.
appreciate it. Thank
Have a
you.
good one.